I've been missing you guys. It's okay. I am busy, but I can come through. Just holler at me. I'll be here.
We don't have a jingle, but we do have this for you, just to stereotype you further. We do have a little banjo.
No, I know.
Little banjo.
It wouldn't be an appearance on here without some dueling banjos or something. It's like you guys normally got that queued right up for me, which is fine. That's like my personal soundtrack, so it's all right. It makes sense.
I did think of you with the Chinese spy balloon and the number of, as we call them, deedly-deedlies. There were, several. It was Marjorie Taylor Greene and Don Jr. told civilians to try to shoot it down, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think anybody needed to tell these people to try to shoot it down. As soon as it, became a thing, I was like, well, that's going to be target practice, because I'm aware that it was way too high in the sky for anybody to shoot it down. But like your average, backwoods Montanan or any of these other states is not. They don't have that kind of either depth perception or math skills. They'll see it and they're like, oh yeah, I can handle that easy all day. It's like
all day long. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the best shot around here.
One big clay
I'm sure
pigeon.
there was some rounds fired off.
Can I just say it makes me laugh just reading the Well-Read Comedy Tour, just because that it's spelled WELLRED. The Well-Read Comedy Tour is, and by the way, premiered on Amazon, right? It's a 3-part comedy special featuring you and Ryan Forrester and Drew Morgan. I guess they would call them comrades on Fox News, since you're all communists.
Corey Ryan Forrester. It's his fault for having 3 names. But yeah, the 3 of us collectively are well read. We've got a podcast. We do shows together. But also, for the record, the specials are available individually or as a group. It's just however you want to do it on Amazon. So yeah, you can go about it either way.
And it's also, you're not just a man, you're a podcast as well.
Yeah, like we were saying, off mic before the break, I've about got too many podcasts at this point. I've got 3 of them. So there's Well-Read podcasts with me, Corey, and Drew. I have Weekly Skews, which is all about politics. And then me and Corey have another podcast where we talk about fancy people stuff. Called Putting on Airs. So take your pick.
Yeah. I love that.
I love that you said you argue about everything from politics, gross, to whether or not dinosaurs have feathers, fun.
Yes. Right. It sounds fun, but that's one of those heated arguments we've ever had. I got fired up. I'd been drinking that night before we recorded, and they started talking about how T-Rex would look better with pink and blue feathers on it, and I just wasn't having it. My childhood reared up in me, and I started screaming at them in the hotel room. So, but it's a silly program.
Yeah, well, but I mean, they are evolved from birds, aren't they? Dinosaurs? Discuss. I mean,
birds evolved from them.
Well, from them.
Yeah,
right.
Flip that. Birds. Yeah. There's there's a lot of dispute on the whole feathers dinosaurs thing. They go back and forth. And I wasn't saying that they wouldn't. It's just Corey and Drew were trying to act like in Jurassic Park, for example, the T-Rex would have looked cooler or more threatening if it had been, appropriately displayed with the feathers and the plumage. And I was telling them that's patently absurd. I just don't believe that's true at all.
Did that fire up the anti-drag queen crowd, or to make T-Rex
look
like
I didn't realize. I didn't draw that parallel in my mind at the time. I was only thinking dinosaurs.
Right.
But Corey and Drew sort of brought that up. You're like, you're kind of insulting some people by getting down on like feather boas and whatever. And I was like, I'm not. It's not for people. It's for murder lizards. I just don't see it.
Your podcast is
a murder lizard with a feather boa. I'm in. Give me some eyeshadow, and here we go.
You describe Well-Read as you bonded over a shared notion. Being a backwoods hillbilly doesn't have to also mean being a hate-fueled, book-hating ignoramus, which I think is you prove every day. You've been selling out all over the country, even at a gay nudist resort, which I must hear about.
Yeah, a lot of waners, but it was a good time. There's a group called G&I. They every year in the Poconos they get together, and it's like gay.
That's well named for a gay nudist place.
G&I, what's that for gay?
Yeah, they put the
Poconos. Yeah, I know.
Okay. Right.
It's pretty pokey up there, that's for sure. But they're, it's weird. You show up and everybody's totally naked except for some leather straps, perhaps, or things of that, some bandolier looking things or whatever, but mostly naked. Everything's hanging out, and you feel very weird at first, and then you start feeling weird for a different reason, because you start feeling weird for having clothes on, because that's how quickly you can feel out of place. You know what I mean? When you're the only one, or the 3 of us are the only one that
it's a social experiment.
Pants. yeah, you start thinking like, why did I wear these pants? I'm not dressed appropriately for this at all. This is weird. I'm standing out. It's like wearing a cut-off T-shirt at a black tie affair, you know. It's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, congratulations, because I know you just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And yet you still haven't lost our number, and that's what we like.
Oh, well, how would I do that? I've been, it's like 7 years this year when I first went viral, and I'd say that sometime in 2016 is probably the first time I came on this show too, or thereabouts. It was around then, so
yeah.
You guys were early adopters, which I appreciate.
Don't you feel like the stupiding of America has gotten worse since then? That we're like at peak idiocracy. We just did a bit about Alex Jones took someone out of context to prove that liberals actually are eating babies, and I don't.
Yeah. How did he do? Did he get that? Were you swayed? You were like, did you get to the end of that segment? And you're like, oh, you know what? Kind of craving baby now.
But the liberal
Thanks,
baby
Alex
eating
Jones.
thing has only taken off. Like that's.
No, I
right.
know. I mean, you asked if I thought the stupefying of American culture has gotten worse. I mean, it certainly hasn't gotten better. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it a little bit just because, as of right now, Trump isn't the president, right? And they don't have quite the stranglehold. Like there was some amount of pushing back on everything he represented, which is tied intrinsically to the stupefying of America. It's just that the faction that's firmly entrenched in the stupidity muck, they've only gotten more embroiled in it, and they're going further and further down the dumb rabbit hole, but I think there's still enough people trying to fight back against that.
I mean,
now.
This huge Fox story, does this impact the Fox viewership or Fox viewer at all? That they're, hearing all these hosts are basically, saying the exact opposite, whether it's about the election or anything else, privately by text and as they do on air.
I don't know, because I don't know if they hear that, or if they do hear that, they probably think, oh, well, it's like they're trying to take them down. They immediately think that's not true. They're just they just got a target on their back because they spread the truth, and people don't like that, so they got to make them look bad in the rest of the media or whatever. I think they've got so many built-in defense mechanisms for things that they don't agree with, that they don't even have to think about rolling those out. As soon as something comes in they don't agree with, their brain just clicks into that gear and they dismiss it summarily and go about their day.
So they will not hear that Sidney Powell's main source for the election fraud information on Fox was a woman that said she is a headless time traveling entity.
Internally decapitated.
Pardon me.
Right. Yeah. Just a ghost with no head.
Yeah.
Body's got a head, right? But spiritually, it's a weird thing to be spiritually headless. I would think it'd be the opposite. I would think most people would be like, if you're going to have spiritual anatomy things going on, you'd have two heads spiritually, or two hearts or something. That sounds like something a spiritual person would say. But it's being like, I'm spiritually brainless. I don't understand. It's like, well, you're not doing great in the corporal realm either in terms of brains. So, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters that much to them where it comes from. It's just once they've gotten a hold of it and whether or not they agree with it. And if they do, then they just take it and run with it, and it becomes the gospel. You know what I mean?
Well, this latest story just broke that Kevin McCarthy finally released the 41,000 hours of surveillance footage filmed during the January 6th riot at the Capitol, but not publicly, just exclusively to Tucker Carlson, whose producers have been combing through it.
I don't understand how. I mean, I guess when you're Kevin McCarthy, when that level of power, I guess anything is theoretically legal, but I don't understand how that's an okay thing to do. I know a huge chunk of this country thinks it's very not okay that he did that, including me, but I mean, that's just that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
did he
sell it to him for profit, or, I mean, what,
Yeah, and it's ours.
It's
the American people's.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
And what kind of, hatchet job are the producers going to do to make it look like this was a peaceful tourist visit, right?
He already made that one, documentary, I'm doing air quotes, about it, made it look as... and that was one of the I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw the trailer or whatever. And the trailer was one of the most worrisome, chill down my spine inducing things I had seen. So I can't imagine what they're going to do with all this, with all the raw footage. But that's
Are you talking
Yeah.
about the ball tanning documentary?
Treasonous. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
disturbing.
The one that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just remembered it was crazy. You know, I mean, that's been a few months ago now. They put up, so much crazy stuff comes out, you can't keep up with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it involved the ball stuff.
Yeah.
I thought there was
Do you-
also a January 6th one, or maybe they were related.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Do you?
I
Is
can't
your
remember.
point that your balls remain untanned, or
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
Unless
I
he's
got
at
my
the
own-
nudist resort.
that's disappointing?
I don't-
right.
I don't want to think
They
about a
are-
sunburn on my
no.
balls.
Mine are like, swamp dwellers. Well, swamp's a bad
sure.
choice of words. Shadow dwellers.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they stay,
Mushroom people. Yeah.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.